What's up, guys? Welcome into Good Morning Lambeau. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. You can find me on Twitter at Packers_access. You can email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. You can text us, 865-658-5824. I'm joined alongside Emilio live in Tennessee. My man got up for the show. He just rode out of bed. I know how this operates, man. How you doing?
I'm good this morning. Good, man. Couldn't let you run solo, man. I had to hit it.
Tim's got business to take care of. So last night I was planning on going solo. So, man, I had a slew of videos queued up. We're ready to roll. Emilio pops in with diesel in hand.
Uh-huh.
All right, let's adjust. I'd much rather talk to another human than just sit here and talk to myself. I promise you that.
Right.
So what we were going to do, guys, I actually had a video queued up. Unfortunately, it's not loading. I wanted to kind of hit on the Brett Favre trade that kind of kicked that whole dynasty off, right? With them getting him in Green Bay. If that video does load, I'll go to it. But as of right now, we'll plan on not hitting it. I wanted to kind of set the stage for what we were going to talk about. You know, obviously this season's all about evaluating Jordan Love, right? Evaluating Jordan Love and the rest of the roster, kind of setting yourself up for next year and the year after. We talked about that ad nauseum, so we'll try to stay away from it. But what really kind of kicked things off is 1992. And I wanted to try to draw a little bit of a parallel. Now, I know the gatekeepers are going to say, Clayton, you're not allowed to compare Jordan Love to Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers. Okay, well, they can go play in traffic. They do whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
They tell them to go start a pod, and they can do what they want, and I'll talk about what I want to talk about. So we're going to kind of hit on that from 92 up and talk about how things kind of changed, okay? First of all, we got Joyce in the chat. Joyce, it's good to see you in here. She said, is this the first year that games have been played on Saturdays? No, it isn't, Joyce. That's something they've started. I think they would do it every week, honestly, if it wasn't for college football. There was some kind of agreement signed into place way back in the day that the NFL would not play Friday football or Saturday football to keep it kind of solely for high school Fridays and then Saturday college. I thought that was really cool that they were trying to not take some of the shine away from the quote unquote amateur side of football. Although we know college football now, Emilio, it's professional football, bro.
Right. Well, where do all these kids come from anyway? They come from Friday Night Lights and Saturday football. So you got to watch them. It's got to happen anyway. Why take it away from them?
Absolutely, man. That's the way I feel too. Omer in the chat said, morning PTA posse, morning Clayton and Emilio. We got to hit it for him, man.
Emilio!
Oh, he's in the house. It's always the laugh, man.
Yeah.
I had at least a half a dozen stoner buddies that I grew up with that had that same laugh. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
It is what it is. All right. Let's do it. Let's talk about the 1992 season real quick, and then we'll kind of set the stage. We're going to try to wrap up talking defense versus the Bucs. Some of you guys are going, I don't care what happened 30 years ago. Well, we do. Okay. So just calm down. 1992, Emilio, this is kind of how it started. I went back and was like, okay, are we going to be unfairly judging Jordan Love? Like, you know, everybody says that wins aren't a quarterback stat. It's funny that you have to say that because that makes me think, I believe people think it actually is. And, you know, you don't ever look back and go, man, he was a great quarterback, but he had a 300 winning percentage, right? You just can't find a great quarterback that played that bad, or their team didn't play that well, I should say. So when I went back in 92, I looked up and I went, okay, they only won 9 games in 92. If we win 6, we're not too far behind that, right? Mm-hmm. And I looked at 93 and went, they only won 9 in 93, 9 in 94. And then you look at it in 92, they didn't even make the playoffs. They lost in the divisional round, both 93 and 94, made it to the conference round in 95. And then, of course, 96 won the Super Bowl. So it's like, hold up a minute. We're on pace to win 9 games this year. That's kind of how my mind fires, right? So when I was looking at it from that perspective and kind of put things into perspective, then you start to go, okay, what did Favre have to work with? And again, I was going to show a video on the Favre trade. I can't get it to load right now. We'll go to it later if we can get to it. But when you look at kind of how that unfolded, they traded for Favre. The plan wasn't for him to start in 92, obviously. But Don Mikowski goes down with the ankle injury. Favre comes in, and they finished 9-7. When I say finish, I mean he came in, it was like week 1 or week 2, if I remember correctly. So this was pretty much the entire season, right? Now, obviously, Jordan Love, this is his 4th year in the league. I think Favre's, it was his 2nd year in the league, if I remember correctly. So a little bit of difference there, but they were both 24 years old. And, oh, by the way, Aaron Rodgers was 24 years old when he took over quarterback in Green Bay, too. It's just wild, the parallels, Emilio.
Right. That's exactly it. And looking at it quickly, man, that first season in '92, they were still minus 20 points point differential, and then the rest of the time, you see when we won that Super Bowl, what was our point differential? Almost 250.
246, man.
So like you look at it, that one Super Bowl was 246. The lost Super Bowl was 140. That was our second highest, and then our two divisional losses was 124 and 135 in the early 2000s. So points are key, man. You got to keep them off the board. You got to put them up yourself. So it's cool to see, though. Looking back on it, I wasn't even alive in '92. So going back and reviewing it is a fun thing, man.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Jennifer Wright says, start of the dynasty. It matters. I completely agree. Jim in the chat said, I'm not sure this team can win 9, too inconsistent. It's a good point, Jim. It really is.
Yeah.
When I step back and look at it, though, you go, the Green Bay Packers in '92 were not the youngest team in the league. I mean, you can look at their roster and tell they were not the youngest team in the league. You had people like, Harry Sidney, Darrell Thompson, who are some of the others that were, on the defensive side of the ball. Leroy Butler had been around for a while, right? I think he got drafted in the late '80s, if I remember correctly. I think it was like '89 or something. I could be wrong there. Also, you start to compare the targets that Favre had too. He had Sterling Sharp, right?
Mm.
When you look at Aaron Rodgers' targets, he had Donald Driver. He had Donald Driver. He had Greg Jennings. He had James Jones. He had Jordy Nelson. Right now, look at who Jordan Love has.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the Donald Driver on this wide receiver core? There is one. There is not one. Who's the proven wide receiver? You guys know Jennings blew up with Favre, right? Like you've seen, okay, this is a legit, true number one wide receiver when Favre was still there, right? Who's that guy for? Jordan Love. Right now, I think some could argue limited snaps, but Dontavian Wicks is kind of looking like that guy. Although we love Watson, we love Dobbs. Even that you take into consideration the injuries that they had this year. And I know Sterling Sharp was injured too throughout his career. So it's just interesting to kind of compare that stuff. I think it's really, really cool. So I guess what I'm trying to say is Love is having the same amount of success with a lot less. It's important to put that into perspective. So, Jim, when you say I'm not sure they can make it to 9 wins, I wouldn't be surprised if they only win 7 wins or 8 games, right? I wouldn't be surprised at all. But if they make it to 9, we've really got to step back a second and go, okay, there's something going on here. This is pretty impressive. So let's do this. Now, if we jump ahead and say, okay, what did they do weekly? This is really cool. I like to break this down too. Let me get that off there. Thank you, Jim, for the comment. Good to see you in here, buddy. So when you go weekly, Emilio, I was going, okay, what did they do down the stretch there? They started off with 2 losses. Well, let's see. Was that no, that wasn't the preseason, right?
No, it doesn't look like it.
2 losses. It was the Bengals game that Favre came in and they came back and won, right? And then, of course, his first technical start was against Pittsburgh. They got the win. They went on a 3-game losing streak, won 1 against Detroit at Detroit. Then they lost 1 in New York, and then they went on a 6-game winning streak. A 6-game winning streak down the stretch. And one of those games, Emilio, pretty cool, was week 14 in Milwaukee against Detroit. Some of you guys are going, man, I wonder how that went. Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's check it out real quick, shall we?
Let's see it.
Began their roll against this current 4-5 spin by beating Detroit earlier. The snow, but Mike Holmgren loves
got the snow flying.
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee.
Thompson gets his first start. He looked 6 yards. Favre. That
Quick
short
drop.
passing game. And the flat makes a nice grab, some nice moves, and this will go for 14 yards. Thompson again running right. Good block by Harry Sidney. 10 yards.
Yeah, you watch
Harry Sidney, the man, dude.
Good
good guy on a local Green Bay radio.
Chris Spielman to lead him into the end zone.
Nanook the North, Wayne Fonts sees his Lions down 7-0. Rodney Pete to start today. And he slipped and slid and looked for Herman's more. Downfield, makes the catch, getting Detroit close. But Pete fumbles a guy that's had a great year.
Fumble, a little cold out there.
Falls on the football. And the pack strikes with
Look at that gun, dude.
Heave that thing.
And he could go all the way. He's in. No, Brett, Sherling United. Oh, it's a fumble. Oh, he picks it up. Touchdown. 64.
I'm sorry. We got to take it back for just a second. Sterling forgot where the end zone was because of the snow. Check this out, guys. This is so much fun. Here we go.
Football. And the pack strikes quickly. Far.
Let him pull up short, Emilio.
And he could go all the way. He's in. Brett, you're not. Sherling, you're not in. Oh, it's a fumble. Oh, he picks it up. Touchdown. 64, excuse me.
Could you imagine
65
Twitter
yard
if we had Twitter back then?
Oh, man.
Sterling Sharp.
Yeah, you watch the replay here, Chris. Sterling a little bit confused by the
Give me
snow on the
that.
ground. Thinks he's in the end zone. Right there, he thinks he's crossing the goal line. And luckily, he gets a look at the cone just as the ball comes out. Has the presence of mind to pick it up and get it in the second time.
Whoa.
Second quarter, the Pack driving the screen to Harry Sidney. Makes William White, fitting name on this day in the snow, miss. And it's 21-0 Pack. Andre Ware, the youngster, on in relief. Relief, how do you spell it? Not W-A-R-E, not today. Matt Brock hits a Betembo. And Tony Bennett, he left his heart in County Stadium. 28-0, the Pack. Ware would get better. Here he hits Herman Moore. You want to see a nice play right there. Touchdown, 11 yards, 28-7.
Defensive back Jerry Butler here should have been ejected from the game as he goes head high on Andre Ware. That's the exact kind of flagrant foul we were talking about this morning on game day.
The Packers undaunted. Here we go. Sharp out of the backfield. A short passing him. So if you hit him short, Tommy, you got to cheat up, and then you can hit him a little bit longer. Favre and Sharp, 9-yard touchdown. 35-7 at the half. 3 touchdowns, 214 yards. No interceptions for Brett Favre. A bright spot for the Lions. Guess who? You can't tackle Barry Sanders.
God, he's such a
over
beast,
1,000 yards. That gives him 4 seasons, each one 1,000-yard season. Only Eric Dickerson, Earl Campbell, Tony Dorsett, and Barry
Crazy.
have now done that. But the Pack's longest winning streak in 8 years puts them at 7-6 as they beat the Lions 38-.
I bet they went nuts back then. See, I wasn't a Packer fan that then. I don't pretend to be. I love going back and looking at this stuff, right? And I know we've got many people in the chat that was. What do you think about that grainy footage, Emilio? That's like Jennifer said in the comments, man. That's when football was football, dude.
Mm-hmm. Came a long way, man. I do love. I love the breakdown. Fastest 3 minutes, right, man?
Yeah.
It sounds like football, man. It reminds me of childhood sort of thing, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that when that music drops, you know it's on. You know it's on for sure. Let's go to the chat here real quick, see what people are saying about this. Jennifer Wright says Sharp was a beast. He was. He needs to be in the Hall of Fame. You know, I kept hearing that, and I'm going, but he didn't play that long and this and that. And then lo and behold, I go and look at the numbers. I'm like, that dude dominated an era when it was mainly running, right? I mean, he was something else, dude. So I completely agree. I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. I like, Omer said that Leon let move when Sharp fumbled there at the line. Hilarious. Only Sterling Sharp, and I can see his brother Shannon having the talent to do that too. To be able to just nonchalantly fumble at the goal line, have the awareness, just the smoothness to pick it up and still take it in for the touchdown.
Yeah, right.
As somebody's trying to tackle you. But Jim in the chat said that Favre guy was pretty good. Yeah, that Favre, yeah, for sure. What was it? When did you kind of become a fan, Emilio? Maybe you've been a fan your whole life, but what was like your first memory of watching the Packers, dude? I never asked you this question.
Geez, I kind of been a fan my whole life. I was when I was like a real young kid, I got a piggy bank with the old, the helmet Tim has up on his wall, basically one like that, but it's like a piggy bank, man. And ever since then, my dad's a Cowboys fan, so my dad and sister are Cowboys fans. So by the time I was up there, it was me against them, and we're house divided and all that stuff. But honestly, just watching Favre, I think was memories. By the time 2000 hit, I was probably 5. So around there ish, pushing forward into the early 2000s, and then probably started getting some memories. One that's burned into my brain was his dad's that game after his dad's against the Raiders. But there was just so many in between there that we've been so lucky to have and just enjoy it, really.
Yeah, no, it's so true, man. I think there's many people who are Packer fans because of Favre. He was that guy that he was going to play week in and week out. His teammates loved him.
Mm-hmm.
And I know he's in the news a lot today and this and that. We talk strictly football here. If you're going to judge one guy for stuff that happens off the field, you better judge them all that way. It's kind of the way I see it. So, it's just, I think that's 99% political, but it is what it is. With that being said, man, those were the good old years for sure.
Yeah.
Man.
Oh yeah. I had one shirt that was autographed. It was Fuzzy Thurston.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was, and signed that thing, man. I wore that shirt out. It was holes in it, like the signature started fading away after all the washes. But it was one of those where you just never took it off. That yellow felt right, and
Yeah, Fuzzy Thurston was an offensive lineman for Lombardi, big part of the Packers sweep, but one of the unsung heroes, really. I remember the first time I went to Green Bay, I kept hearing that he had a bar up there, and I was going to try to go, but we were in and out the first time we went to Green Bay. I'm not even sure. I'm not sure if he's passed away now or not, but just one of those old school Lombardi Packers, no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
Doug in the chat said Fritz Shermer seemed to be able to find a way to control Barry Sanders. Yeah, if I remember correctly, Barry's last game was a playoff game, I think, and they held him to -2 yards or -1 yards.
I thought that was it.
Yeah, so that's they always Barry would run all over them consistently, as far as the rest of the league and everything. But it seemed like Fritz Shermer knew how to stop him, and that's again back then he installed that 34, if I remember correctly. Just kind of digging back into the old video, so the 34 was big on stopping the run back in the day. Everything's kind of evolved now with teams running a lot of 11 personnel. You have to stay in nickel. It kind of negates the 34 base that you use. But
that's it. That's exactly it. Because they were in base a lot more, and they were full. You got 4 big backers, 3 big linemen, and it's a lot easier. You're not running a bunch of routes. You're not running the deep shots, and being able to stop the run was the key back then.
Right, definitely. Carly Ray says, hey, all just popping in for a few, sipping my coffee. Hey, good to have you in here, Carly. Hope you're doing well. Hope the kiddos are doing well. I'm sure you're playing Super Mom this morning. Jennifer Wright said, Shannon's Hall of Fame speech still makes me cry. Yeah, it was a good one. They gave him heck for it, too. Who was it? Somebody gave him a rough time behind the scenes. I think it might have been Deacon Jones, maybe. If I remember correctly, if Deacon was still alive, there was somebody behind the scenes that gave him a hard time going, get out there and cry like that in front of all these legends, and gave him, just gave him a hard time about it. I thought it was funny. But yeah, a great speech nonetheless. It just kind of shows the bond he's got between him and Sterling. And there's no two ways about it, man. I think it's pretty solid across the board. People believe, think, and know that Sterling was even better than Shannon. So with Shannon being a Hall of Famer, you think Sterling would be in there too. But Jim said he saw the first Super Bowl. That's absolutely wild, man. That is absolutely wild. Doug in the chat said there's a clip in either 93 or 94 when Holmgren got frustrated with Favre. He was going to pull and put Brunell in, but then changed his mind. Imagine if Brunell had gone in and done well. Yeah, he said he's all over the joint. He said, go ahead, let's make the switch. Let's make the switch. Yeah, make the switch to the other quarterback. And then he went, wait a minute. He's on the mic talking. He says, well, he's got to know he's effing up here. Like, imagine if he'd pulled him, bro.
Right. Be like everybody wanting the big red dog in there. Like, come on, man. Just let him ball out for a little.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Let's see here. Jennifer Wright in the chat says, I worked at Toys R Us in Green Bay in 2000. We fought over who we checked out for the Packers toy drive. I got Antonio Freeman. That's pretty cool stuff. Dylan in the chat says, good morning, all. Been listening to the show on Spotify the past couple months. Glad to get in here live for the first time. I've been learning a ton about the Packers this season. Go Packers.
Appreciate it.
Dylan, man, good to see you in here, buddy. We appreciate you, man. Feel free to drop anytime you see us go live. We typically go live twice a day. We try to go live at least once a day, whether it's in the morning or the evening. Just depends on the schedules, obviously, but it's good to see you in here, man, for sure. All right, let's see here. Yeah, like Doug said, yeah, that's the one Clayton could have changed history, talking about if they'd pull Favre. I can only imagine, man. Whew. Been absolutely wild. So let's do this real quick. Just want to give a shout out to our new sponsor here on the show. BetUS is now the official sports book of Packers Total Access. Appreciate them jumping on board. Really excited about the partnership. To register as a PTA supporter, if you want to support the show in another way, there's a link in the description of this video. You just click on that link. It'll automatically attach your profile on BetUS to Packers Total Access, okay? So if you do that, just click on the link. You can register for free. Doesn't cost a thing. That helps the show out, okay? And then if you do end up wanting to put some action on the game, always gamble responsibly. I always tell people, anyone who asks me, hey, I'm thinking about getting into gambling, I always say, do not gamble 1 cent that you can't afford to lose. That's my rule of thumb, right? And for me, it's almost as if I treat it like a hobby. It's like, okay, this is like buying a new movie or going to the movies or something, right? Don't ever treat it like this is my link to financial independence. So make sure you gamble responsibly. As far as this week, the green line with PFF, just want to mention real quick, the Packers are 3.5-point favorites. Okay, so if you wanted to put a little action in on that, if you go over to Bet US, you can see there's their point spread. This is how their system's set up. They got a really smooth interface. They've got a ton of prop bets as well. But you can get the Packers money line for -170. You can get the point spread there -3.5 at -105. So the Packers are laying 3.5 points, as Vegas have them as the favorites in that game. Another thing too, if you go to PFF, they give what we call PFF Edge, where they kind of provide you with a little bit of inside information, if you will, according to the analytics, and say, okay, here's the best bet of the week. If you look on the right side there of the screenshot of Cade Otton, the tight end for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, what they're suggesting is the best bet, according to their analytics this week, is to take the under on receptions with Cade Otton in Tampa Bay at 2.5 receptions. Okay, that's at 21.5% as far as Edge's rating. So if you go to BetUS, again, you can hop right on there. You see Cade Otton on the right. You could take the under for +120. So pretty good odds there as well. I tend to lean toward unders than overs because more things can go wrong than right in those situations. But again, I'm not recommending you place that bet. I'm simply saying that, according to PFF's analytics, seems to be one of the better choices. So always gamble responsibly. Obviously, this is BetUS, America's favorite sports book, been around since 1994. Excited to have them on. Again, that link is in the description. Click on that link. It'll attach you to us, and that would help support the show. So we really appreciate that. All right, let's talk a little Jordan Love here. So I heard a video. Actually, let's go to the video first. You guys have heard me talk about Greg Cosell. You would think he's my long-lost uncle. I just respect the guy so much, man, so much. And Emilio, you keep freezing up. I don't know if it's your end or my end. It's probably my end. We'll kind of work through it here. But with Greg Cosell, if you need to hop off too, it's totally cool. Greg Cosell, the reason I like Greg Cosell so much, gang, is because he's been around football pretty much. I mean, since the 70s, he's been looking at football film, right? That's something that he's been digging into. He's been, with NFL films since the 70s. Does a great job of removing all bias and just breaking down the tape, right? That's what he really keys in on. So when he speaks, I shut up and listen. When you guys hear me talk about building my draft board, right? He's the guy that I talk about. I put the most stock in his opinion when it comes to draft status, right? So anytime he has anything to say around the game of pro football, he's seen it all. He's heard it all. He gets invited in constantly by NFL head coaches because they trust him. He's been around the game so long. So he gets to go in and actually pick the brains of current NFL coaches, right? So he's around all of the information. Let's see what he had to say about play action passes.
I just struggle with no play action pass from under center. I don't know how you feel as an offensive lineman. You played, as you said, for 5 teams in 7 years. I just think the play-action pass game from under center is a far more effective tactic in terms of attacking a defense than play-action in the gun. And again, this is just not me making that up. I hope people understand that, what I do, and I talk to coaches as well. But, there's just so many teams. They're in gun all the time, and there's no play-action pass game with the quarterback under center. And I think that is just a more effective way of running play action.
All right. So again, that was from Ross Tucker's podcast. Love Ross Tucker. When you guys hear us say daddy sodas, right? I stole that from Ross Tucker. I listen to his podcast religiously, and he always referred to him as daddy soda. So I always want to give him credit for that line. Just absolutely awesome, dude. He's a former NFL offensive lineman, and him and Greg Cosell kind of partnered up. It's always a good time, man. I love how he respects Greg Cosell's opinion so much. Emilio, I don't know if you can hear me or not. It was lagging a little bit, I know. But if he respects Greg Cosell, then I think we all should. This guy spent many years as an offensive lineman for several teams in the NFL.
Right. Really, that's exactly it. Man, how can you not respect him,
Yeah. All right.
They're in there fighting.
Yeah, we got a real bad delay, Emilio. So we'll just say, look, man, I'll wrap up here by myself, okay? That way you don't feel you look like you're stressed out over there. I don't blame you. So hopefully it's not on my end, buddy. I appreciate you. So Greg Cosell talking about play action. You guys heard me early in the year. I talked about how I didn't like the blind play action because Jordan didn't look comfortable. And what I mean by blind play action is literally snapping the ball, from under center, turning your back completely to the line of scrimmage, and then having to come back around. Because typically what happens is you go into that play and you've got a pre-snap look. When you turn your back to the defense and you come back, everything has changed. Everything has moved. If they're sugaring 2 on the shelf, right, and they end up spinning a safety in the box, when you snap the ball, there's 2 safeties up top. You've got to come back around, know your side adjustments, read the coverage. It just makes things a little more difficult. Now, for a young quarterback, that's tough. For a veteran quarterback, it can be a deadly weapon, right? Because you're getting the linebackers to displace. You're getting the safeties to maybe tip their hand a little bit more post-snap as they would have stayed home and allowed a slot cross to develop a little bit more to bait a quarterback. You kind of put them on their toes and then their heels, if you will. It's that rocking effect we talk about. Play action pulling them up, then they got to backpedal. Sometimes they over pursuit in backpedaling, and you can hit some of the underneath routes. So it's something that's really, really important. When we look at Jordan Love's arguably his best performance of the year, I think we would all agree Thanksgiving was one of those games, right? He absolutely lit it up on Thanksgiving. Why did he light it up on Thanksgiving? Play action versus the Lions, he was 10 of 13 for 150 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks, passer rating of 139.9. So you can see how he's beginning to get really, really comfortable with play action under center. What Greg Cosell's saying, he doesn't understand why they're using shotgun play action because it's not as effective. It's not as effective, but it allows the quarterback to keep his eyes up the field. Even though he's faking the handoff, he's still seeing the defense. He's not turning his back to the defense. That's also why it's not as effective. So this play action stat right here includes shotgun. What I said was, I wonder how good Jordan has been if we removed shotgun. That's the beautiful thing about SIS data is you can pretty much draw up any scenario, any specific scenario, and see what the stats are to it. Okay, so I went, and what I did was I removed shotgun. Okay, completely removed shotgun. So this is all play action passes from under center, okay? And obviously, I just kept it sorted by team, so we filter out a lot of the noise, and we know Jordan Love has pretty much taken every snap at quarterback this year. Oh, by the way, that's something that's kind of getting swept under the rug too, gang. Like, when you think about Jordan Love and his durability this year, that's not something to just shake a stick at. I mean, you look across the league, Aaron Rodgers goes out after 4 plays. I know he's a much older quarterback. I got you. Matt Stafford was dealing with arm injuries coming into the season. Right? There's just a number of players you think about. Jalen Hurts has been banged up, run a little bit different style offense, but you've seen it. Look at 2 of the last 2 years, right? With the concussions and the injuries down there that he's faced. He seems to have gotten that straightened out now with some offseason training and stuff to kind of prepare himself how to fall to keep his head from hitting the turf. But his durability's been pretty impressive. I just want to mention that's something that we don't talk about enough when it comes to Jordan Love. So when you look at the stats, you remove shotgun. This is play action statistics. If you go completion percentage, which I think we would all agree, that's been the issue for Jordan Love. You've seen the accuracy issues in the first half against the Giants. And I know some people were kind of chalking it up to just the wind. I didn't see that. When the ball came out of his hand on some of those errant throws, the ball was wobbly when it came out of his hand. Now, is he trying to put too much on it because he's factoring for that win? Could be the case. But I refuse to just chalk it up as, oh, no, it was windy. You better be able to play in the wind. The great quarterbacks, even during the down years of the Packers back in the 80s, Lynn Dickey could spin that thing into that icy cold wind in Green Bay, right? You got to be able to spin that thing into the wind. It's what made Aaron Rodgers so good. It's what made Brett Favre so good. You've got to be able to do that. So we got to remove that excuse. But play action without shotgun, play action under center, Jordan Love is actually 11th in the league at 68.3%. Guys, that's 68.3%. Is much better than where he's been throughout the year, which is the high 50s, flirting with 60 at times, right, as far as his yearly average. So you can see how his accuracy has improved play action under center. Another thing, too, is the catchable balls. When you look at the catchable balls, he actually grades out, I think, at number 10 in catchable percentage at 87.9%. Now, what does that mean? That means the ball, exactly what it sounds like. The ball was catchable. It wasn't on target. It wasn't thrown perfectly. On target percentage, in my opinion, is a perfect throw. That's the way I look at it. Catchable percentage is it wasn't perfect, but it was good enough, right? So if he's 11th in that, he's 10th in completion percentage. I think completion percentage is the most important statistic in my opinion, because there ain't nobody who, just like with points scored over rushing yards when you're talking about defense, if you set me down and said, all right, you had to choose one, which one's more important? You're not going to convince me that catchable percentage is more important than completion percentage, because completion percentage is in direct reflection of results. And that's what we're looking for, are results. It's important, though, to keep catchable and on-target percentage in your back pocket to go, okay, he's doing his part, though, right? That's important. I'm looking for the best end results. That's why I would have to lean on completion percentage, but it's important to put that into context. So he's 11th in in catchable percentage. Now on targets, he drops down significantly. I don't know exactly where he rates, but you can see it drops down to 70.7%. That's when you see, okay, he's still not perfect with his passes. Probably never going to be, if we're honest about this. But if he can continue to improve to keep that catchable number up, Packers can win a lot of games, especially with his ability to command this offense the way he has. I mean, you're talking about the last several games. He's got 9 passing touchdowns and only 1 interception. I know he's got the fumbles. I got you. You got to clean it up. But I think it's just important to kind of mention that stuff. It's important to keep your finger on the pulse when it comes to those type of statistics and efficiency, and it goes hand in hand. With all that being said, right, think about what Greg Cosell just said. He's been watching NFL films, been watching footage, been studying NFL offenses for, since, like I said, since the 70s. This has been what now, 50 years? Going on 50 years, he's been studying the game of football, and he's putting this emphasis, not saying it's just important, but going, I don't understand why more teams don't do this, right? It is that crucial for your success as an offense in the league. You're seeing Jordan Love become more and more comfortable doing that blind play action. So I think that's really, really cool, and definitely worth mentioning there. So glad we got around to hitting that. Let's move on now. Oh, here we go. Here's Jordan Love's actual numbers, just him alone. If you wanted to just kind of remove all that other stuff, this is play action under center, 68.3 completion percentage, catchable percentage 87.9%, on target 70.7. His yards per attempt is 8.8. Touchdown percentage is 6.7%. Interception percentage a little high at 3.3%. But like we said early in the season here, his first year starting, that blind play action really hindered him. He would turn around and, like, I remember the first Detroit game, just throwing the ball right to, was it Anzalone, I believe, whoever the linebacker was. Did the same thing, I believe, to the Raiders when he threw at the dump truck. Like, he struggled early when it came to blind play action, but you're seeing him settle in now. Again, interception percentage, you want to keep that down. You want to get that down. Pressured at 38.7%. I think that put him somewhere around number 8 as far as pressured. That's the other thing, too. If they don't bite on play action, you turn around and you got a defender in your face, man, that's dangerous, right? So it's just something to take into consideration. Now, his passer rating when running play action under center is 103.9. Like, that's pretty impressive stuff. So excited to see what he continues to do moving forward as we continue to play under center. Let's go to the chat here really quick. Well, let's go to Omer first. Omer said only fumble lost all season was only starting quarterback. Had not lost one before that last game. Jim says Love plays smart, doesn't risk himself too much. I think he is pretty smart. He lowered his head there once early in the year, and I love what LaFleur said, hey, what are you doing? And he said, I just felt like we needed some juice. I love that line. That's the guy you want leading your franchise. He felt like his offense was a little flat. Maybe the defense was a little flat. You get a chance to try to run someone over. If he gets hurt, we're all going, what an idiot, right? But he didn't get hurt, and that kind of sparks something in your team, right? Like, you know what? If our starting quarterback is out there lowering his head to get every single inch, I'll be damned if I'm going to let this small injury keep me out of snap. I'll be darned if I'm not going to hold myself accountable and do everything I can at the most elite level to lift my teammates up. That's the type of message. That's the type of vibe. That's the type of energy it brings to a team. And that's why he said, felt like we needed some juice. I just love that response. And I love that Matt LaFleur mentioned it in the presser too, or in the interview, because it's just, you want to know those things, right? You really, really want to know those things. So let's see here. Donald in the chat said, overall, I feel like he protects the ball pretty well. He definitely has down the stretch. Early on, I was going, man, these interceptions. He's very streaky, right? Reminds you of another quarterback from back in the 90s. That's why we kind of highlighted all that stuff. Jeff in the chat said, the under center play action really cleans up Jordan Love's footwork. He plants his back foot and lets it rip. He doesn't hitch as often. Yeah, it's like he's got to play on time, Jeff. I completely agree. When you drop back and gun, you can kind of improvise a little bit. You get a little more of that hop, right, as opposed to just planting the foot and throwing. Everything within the West Coast offense, we played that video before of Bill Walsh talking about how he's got the footwork married up to the timing of every single play in the West Coast offense. If your timing is off on your drop, if your footwork's off, you're going to be off on your timing throwing the ball, right? Play action under center is the perfect, the absolute best example of that comment from Bill Walsh. You've got to be on time. You've got to be in sync, or else everything gets thrown off timing wise. And we've seen early in the year, you heard us critique Jordan Love on Chalk Talk, how all year long, the first quarter of the season or whatever, he's playing late. He's getting to his read late. The ball's coming out late. We pointed it out over and over. You're not seeing that now. He's playing a little more on time. Now, the throw to Samori Toure that should have been picked, I believe it was to Toure down the sideline that should have been picked. That's a perfect example of getting to the read late. Just a little too much in the hitch before letting the ball rip, right? So those are still the things you're going to see them pop up from time to time because he's still a young quarterback. The goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to constantly progress as we get through this season. I think we would all agree none of us are expecting them to compete for a Super Bowl this year, right? So what we want to see is just incremental growth all year long. There's going to be setbacks. There's going to be dips in his game. We just want it to, by the end of the year, to be here where we started here, right? Not here with huge peaks and valleys. We want it to, you know what I'm saying? We want to see that incremental growth by the end of the year. Like Tom says here, smash that like button. Yeah, we appreciate you guys. If you would take a second, hit that like button so other Packer fans can find this podcast, find this content. Also, we got a lot of people that have been tuning in from Twitter. If you are on Twitter, hop over to YouTube if you want and hit subscribe for us. Hit like on that video too. But we appreciate you swinging through, making us a part of your morning. Let's see what else we got here in the chat, and then we'll wrap up with a little bit of PFF talk here. Donald in the chat said, I have a feeling after this next off season, it'll be a scary season. He knows he has a better idea of exactly what he needs to be cleaned up. Yeah, when you go through an entire off season, my goodness, man, that's the thing about Jordan too. When people say, well, he hasn't been a starter. No, but you remember Aaron missed several off seasons, right? I think it was 2 off seasons, or I shouldn't say several. I think there was 2 off seasons in a row where he was kind of protesting a little bit. Jordan got to work that whole offseason as if he was a starter. I know it's not the same being the starter because you can't take complete ownership of it, as far as, hey, look, the players aren't going to look to you like, hey, we need to listen to this guy. He's the leader. The team's behind him. They were still looking at it like, okay, when Aaron comes in, we're not even going to have this guy starting, right? So I think that does matter for sure, getting that time in as a starter. But a full offseason after a full year of tape to be able to watch and self-scout and critique yourself, it's going to be absolutely huge. Jim says, I want a playoff game. Me too, Jim. These people who are saying, no, man, just lose out and we get a better draft pick. We're not competing anyway this year. I'm flush that. I want one crack at a playoff team to completely ruin their year like the Lions ruined our year last year, right, from getting into playoffs. That's what I want to see. And I prefer it be the Lions. And if it needs to be the Cowboys, it's totally cool. That's what Omer says, Lions or Cowboys. You know what? I would rather them play the Lions or the Cowboys than the Niners or the Eagles. But if it is the Niners that it shakes out and we end up playing them, if we get into the playoffs, bring it on. Let's see what we got. You talk about a great test. You talk about a great test to see exactly where your football team is. I don't think anyone would argue that the 49ers are the cream of the crop right now, right, with the NFL. Why not see if we can crack skulls with them? Why not see if we can compete with them, right? So it's going to be fun to see how it unfolds for sure. I just hope we get in, though, Jim. I'm completely with you here, man. All right, let's do this. Real quick, let's hit on the PFF defensive grades. We were going to do it yesterday, and we ran out of time, so I want to hit on it once here. I'll go ahead and kill the cam. There's no reason y'all staring at my ugly mug here as we talk about it. So when you talk about the PFF grades, we bring Emilio back in as soon as I kill the cam here. Let's see if we're back in. What's up, man? You having connection issues?
I just shake the squirrels off the freaking cable line outside, man. They were just running around back and forth.
People were going, what are you talking about? It's Tennessee, baby. We got all kinds of
chickens, man.
Here, man.
Those mountain chickens are everywhere. I got like 15 in my front yard every time.
I love it, man. First time I said mountain chicken to someone in the city, they were like, what is a mountain chicken? Squirrel, bro. It tastes just like chicken. You kidding me? Emilio, squirrel gravy. Oh my god.
Oh,
Don't even get me started.
that's
Don't get me
biscuits with some biscuits in the morning, right after a cup of diesel.
Let's go. Jeff in the chat said, I would never tank on purpose. Football teams need an edge. You play to win every single Sunday. That's right. Winning is a habit. So is losing. And when you tank on purpose, you are destroying the culture in your organization. Absolutely destroying. United Bates says Emilio breaking the internet. He's not breaking the internet. I think he's stealing that internet.
Yeah.
I know how that game. I've been there many times. Got the T-shirt out there,
shocked
looking around the box. It's like that Beetlejuice video. So making like, what are you doing around my cable box? Who, me?
Yeah.
Not just hanging around. You know? We need that. We got to get that video.
We do. Yeah. Cable boxes are a lot easier to hotwire than fiber optics, right, Clayton?
Yeah. Oh, dude, come on. Don't get me started. All right. Let's go defense 34, how we match up against the Bucs. I'm going to get close to the screen here, so y'all ain't got to see this. I'm going to kill the cam for a second, all right? So when we look at our defense here, okay, 34 front, notice that things are starting to come into the green a bit, right? Look at the front here. Kenny Clark, 67.8, slowly creeping up on 70. Devontae Wyatt, 67.1, slowly creeping up on 70. When you put that into perspective, right in, Kenny Clark, 35th highest graded defensive lineman in the entire league, okay? So if you just look for a 34 standpoint, right, and you say, okay, 34, 43, there's typically two what we would consider interior defensive linemen, okay? So keep that in consideration. PFF does it the right way, unlike sports media where they say, why do you only got two linemen in there? Because there's a thing called an edge defender. It's essentially a defensive lineman that's standing up, okay? So with that being said, Kenny Clark's grade out as the 35th. Now, listen, his salary cap hit, he should be performing way better than that, right? And again, PFF isn't the tell-all, end-all. It's just another metric, another tool we got in the bag. But he's right there on the cusp of being, quote-unquote, starting caliber, according to PFF, okay? You get into the top 32. Actually, he's already starting caliber, but he's on the cusp of being a number one defensive lineman. If you're in the top 32, then you, in my opinion, according to PFF, you're considered a number one defensive lineman on the depth chart, okay? If you're in the top 32 compared across the league. So if you're in the top 64, then you're considered starting quality. Kenny Clark, 35th. Devontae Wyatt, 37th. Now, we all know their pass rush is absolutely phenomenal, although we did not see it in New York. Bad game. We'll chalk it up to a bad game. Let's hope they rebound, right? But they're right there on the cusp of being a legit number one defensive lineman on the depth chart across the league. TJ Slayton, 62.1, a solid number two is the way you would look at that, right? Not a solid number two, but a number two, the bottom half of the number twos across the league. So when you put things into perspective that way, this defensive line, it's not been great, obviously against the run, but overall pretty solid, right? When you look at their offensive line, you got Tristan Wirfs at left tackle, 77.8. He's an absolute dog, 12th highest graded tackle in the league. You got Stinney at left guard, 60.6. You got Hainsey at 54.9 at center. Their right guard, Mock, 47.5. And then you got Godecki at right tackle, 70.2. Now, when you look at our edges, you got Rashawn Gary, 82.1, bad game last week. Obviously, we would all agree. Preston Smith, 71.2, bad game last week. I know we would all agree. But when you look at our front, Emilio, to me, it looks like the glaring hole there is in the middle for them. We need to push that pocket on Mayfield and make sure that the edge defenders don't allow him to scramble out as opposed to up. The problem with the Giants, in my opinion, well, we were in nickel so much because of their 11 personnel. Heck, even when we were in 34, we would blitz the backside. We bring a scrape blitz, and he was able to step up into a rushing lane on the right side, right? Mm-hmm. This game here, it kind of feels like, you know what? Keep him in the pocket and push the pocket from the center up. I don't think we got to worry about him scrambling near as much as we did our boy Tommy DeVito. But how do you see this, man? What sticks out to you with the our defensive front against their offensive front?
I think that's exactly it. They need to be they need to have integrity in their run, in their in their gap, in their rush there, because honestly, with it being weak up front, I mean, they have a almost last ranked center, 30th center, 41st left guard, 70th right guard. So we got to make our heyday in there. And Gary, what I'd like to see, maybe some ETs or some TEs, get Gary spun inside. But the problem with that is we have to stay sound on. If you're doing an ET, send the end in, then that tackle's got to hold contain. All right,
Okay.
if we get pushed outside, I mean, White could have a day. The other thing is we've got a number 2 corner and a number 3 corner to their 2 number 1 receivers. So
Are you suggesting that we could use Rasul Douglas over there instead of
come on,
57.0?
don't do that to me. No, but I mean, they're going to want to hum it. You know, Baker's going to want to throw the ball all over the yard, I would say. You know, they're not going to run it, I wouldn't think, too much inside zone. It's going to be a lot of stretch outside the hash, numbers sort of play. And we just need everyone to step up, honestly. We need a big day from Gary or Smith. Let's get a couple sacks in there. Let's get them. We need to get them kind of back on their heels. We need to get up in the down count. You know, get them in 2nd and long, 3rd and long, and let this defense actually work.
Yeah, it's so frustrating seeing Valentine over there. And listen, Valentine, he's doing the best he can. Like, you're talking about a late round pick, a guy who no other team in the league wanted him, right? Mm-hmm. Sat on our practice squad for a bit, if I remember correctly. So, you know, it's not the dog pile on him. It's just simply saying Rasul Douglas, according to PFF's, kind of overall ranking system or what have you, their WAR rating, he is the best cornerback, not a top 5, not a top 10, not a starting caliber, the best cornerback in the entire National Football League. And he could be starting over Ballantyne on that left side. He could start on the right side too. You've seen it the year before. You know, there was many people go, oh, he wouldn't have been covering over there. He could play anywhere. Like, right. He could even play the slot, although I think we would all agree his play diminished a bit in the slot. He's better as a boundary corner. He's a great zone defense corner, which kind of makes me think they're bailing on this Fangio system and going more man. The problem is 32 yards on Keyshawn Nixon to lose the game against the Giants. No one wants to mention that was aggressive man coverage. It's just right. Soft, we play soft, we play soft. So I think what they looked at was, if we're going to be playing more man, Rasul is better served if we try to get draft capital for him. It's frustrating, man. It's a hard pill to swallow, because having arguably the best corner in the game, at least here in 2023, playing over someone who's grading out of the 57.0 could be huge for the playoff stretch. And even next year, people say, well, he's not going to be in the cards for 2 years from now. What about next year? Are we already saying we're not going to compete next year? Is that where we're at as a franchise? Just because you want to defend the general manager? And I've gave him his flowers the last several weeks. Great picks, great draft picks this year. Done a really good job with the draft. I think he absolutely crushed it. Mm-hmm. If you see it, you got to say it. That's a bad move. I'm sorry. To give up a 5th and the best corner in the game right now for a 3rd round pick, that's just silly. And immediately the other argument is, well, you freed up salary cap. Guys, go watch the video where Mike Wall reacted to it. He's like, $9 million for a starting, forget top 10, forget top 15, a starting caliber corner in the National Football League, $9 million. If you think you're going to get it cheaper than that, man, you might as well buy a lottery ticket. Like, right. It could happen, right? But yeah, I could end up looking like Brad Pitt too. Probably not in the cards. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, just tough, man. Tough look all the way around. Let's move to nickel here real quick. We'll wrap this big bear up, Emilio. When you look at the nickel, essentially what's happening is Palmer is now going to come in. Well, actually, let me go back to base real quick. Look at their tight end. A starting tight end is K-Dot, and you guys know I mentioned that with BetUS. We'll do one more plug at the end to kind of mention that prop bet that might be worth looking into. Not saying do it, just look into it. K-Dot and grading out of the 53.2, and then their second tight end, Durham, is a 52.7, okay? Just important to mention that. Now, let's get into the secondary a bit. They bring in Palmer in the slot, nothing to write home about, right? 52.2. But on the outside, like you pointed out, Emilio, Mike Evans, 82.4, 17th highest graded wide receiver in the league. Chris Godwin, 31st highest graded receiver in the league at 74.2. They got 2 legit starting wide receivers. And when you look at the way they match up on Ballantyne at 57.0, going to have to bracket a little bit on him. And you think, okay, we'll just put a safety over the top. Who's that safety? Darnell Savage at 65.9. That makes me nervous right now. I know Rudy Ford sucks at football. I got you. That seems to be the case in Green Bay. But the fact that he's still not playing, and it looks like Savage, there's a chance Savage misses too. I'll pull up the injury report here real quick to make sure. But when you look at the secondary there and Owens, you kind of hit on it a little bit. I think that's where Baker might be able to hurt us, man.
Well, that's it, because Mike Evans,
Emilio, is quarters.
Right.
playing with fire with this man coverage and play more quarters. To the best of my knowledge, I don't mean to cut you off, every interception, which hasn't been many this year, has come when we were playing spot drop.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't gotten any in man coverage to the best of my knowledge. Could be wrong, but I think I'm correct in that. Just kind of thinking back on the tape. Go ahead.
Right. Well, I mean, you said it there. Do we have a elite athletes on the corners? Not exactly. Are they athletes? 100%. Are they elite? I wouldn't say that. So why are we going to put him in? Why are we going to try to put him in Mike Evans' hip pocket? That man rakes in 1,000-yard seasons. I don't think he's been in the league without getting a 1,000-yard season starting in his rookie year. So the dude's going to ball out. He's going to get his. It's like a Kelsey that doesn't get enough attention. So we really need to be smart on the on the plays out there, and why not go into country quarters where we keep everything kind of in front of us. We don't want Mike Evans to get that explosive play where he gets 80 of his 100 yards in the game. We need to kind of nickel and dime him down the field. We really do need Baker to kind of force it. We've had him force it before. We've picked him off before. We know that he can get into that kind of slump where he turns it over like that. And the defense honestly needs a spark. If we can get some sort of turnover, something like that, get these guys, vibing, get them gelling, get them excited about where the defense is going, instead of everyone crashing on them all the time. Let's get excited about a turnover. Let's get excited about a third down stop. Let's get this team hyped up so that the offense has got that spark to get out there and start rolling.
Yeah. For sure. When we look at the injury report, I want to double check on Savage just real quick. Darnell Savage did not participate, questionable. I think there's a good chance he misses Sunday.
Right. So it'd be Owens and Ford, do you think, or AJJ and?
Man, at this point, I don't know, Emilio. I would start Ford over every other safety on the roster right now, but obviously they know more about football. They've forgotten more about football I'll ever know. So
I'd be fine with him putting in a heavy nickel. I know we always bring Keyshawn in the nickel, but then we talk a big game about everybody running a heavy nickel with the safety, bringing the extra safety and running 3 safeties instead of 3 corners. And if that's the way to go, I'm 100% down with that. If Keyshawn wants to be the man guy, cool. Let's run the safety if we're gonna run the zone. But with everyone wanting us to run man, we just don't have those kind of dogs that are going to stay in hip pockets the entire time. We would rather let them, pass off, you cover here, you cover there. As long as Campbell's on his game, he's running the dot and McDuffie is, filling on that run gap. We'll have him on the weak side and we'll have Campbell on the strong side. So he'll be over top of Otten most of the time, I would assume.
Yeah. Omer in the chat says Stokes has to replace Valentine if Jair don't get back, but likely take a week or two just coming back. Yeah. The thing that kind of stood out to me last night talking to Paul Bretto is Stokes is going to play. And the reason being is you've got like a 21-day window when you bring them back. And if they're not on the active roster, then they go on the IR for the rest of the year. So they took it right up to the gun. Monday is that 21-day mark. So if he doesn't play Sunday, you lose him for the year. So now the question is, how much is he going to play on Sunday? If Jair doesn't play, he better be playing corner at least half the snaps.
Right. Not special teams, right? We don't want to put him in there as a gunner.
God almighty. What a disaster, dude. What an absolute disaster that was. So if you insert Stokes over Ballantyne, you feel a little bit better about this, right? I think we all agree with that. The other thing, too, if Savage was healthy, people ask me, what do you think the defensive lineup should look like? If it were up to me, what I would do is I would put Stokes over Ballantyne. I would put Savage in the slot if he's healthy and play Rudy Ford in center field. Rudy Ford has been the only person that's able to consistently, turn the ball over, get interceptions for us the last 2 years. And he can't sniff the lineup now all of a sudden. It just feels like there's something there. I don't want to try to create rumors here. I'm just saying, you can't explain to me why in the world Rudy Ford isn't starting at safety with the results we've gotten, the PFF grades we've gotten in the past. When you look at the tape, he plays fast. He plays decisive. It just doesn't make much sense to me, man. It really doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Back to the chat here. Jen Wright says, Ford, please. I'll take one of those too.
Yeah.
Jeff says, I think Gutekunst traded Douglas because he wanted to see the rookies. It also might have something to do with Alexander's future. Could be. And also, like someone mentioned, that came in the quote-unquote tanking period, right? It felt like Goody was like, okay, guys, let's step back and reset here. Now you're looking up at a playoff berth and you traded away your best defender. It's like, Oh boy, arguably your best defender, at
Well,
least
that's it.
defender.
You get on a losing streak right before the trade deadline. All bets are off, man. You're hip firing at that point, trying to figure out what we can get, what we can do with what we have. And looking at it, the team, he was like, man, youngest team in the league. Let's shed what we can, and let's make the team a little younger and keep going.
Yeah, for sure. Jeff in the chat says the Packers are forcing the development of Valentine and Valentine. The window is probably 2025 season for a legit title run. The front office is designing for that. Yeah, and I completely disagree with it, Jeff. Imagine if they had taken this approach in 2010. And I'm not saying we got a chance to win. We all know we got a chance to win a Super. Heck, we got a chance. Like I said, I could end up looking like Brad Pitt. There's a chance of that, right? Probably about 1,000%. Okay, well, millionth of a percent. But anyway, when you talk about the 2010 season, if they had taken that approach during the struggle, guys, they had it was like record numbers amount of people that were on the injured reserve, right? It was crazy. Imagine if Ted Thompson had taken that approach in 2010. We wouldn't have that Lombardi.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put it into perspective here. Another guy who was a little longer in the tooth, right? And people are going to lose their mind because they're going to say, you're comparing Rasul Douglas to Charles Woodson. In no way, shape, or form. But who was the best corner on the 2023 Green Bay Packers before Rasul was traded? Rasul Douglas. Who was the best corner on the Green Bay Packers in 2010? Imagine if you had traded your best player in the secondary in 2010. Do you go on and win that Super Bowl?
Mm-hmm.
I think we would all agree no. If you trade Charles Woodson, you're not winning that Super Bowl. Here's another one. I'll give you a better one. You guys remember in Atlanta when we boat raced Atlanta in the playoffs that year? Remember the pick six? If we had traded Tramon Williams at the trade deadline that year, I feel comfortable saying we wouldn't have won the Super Bowl. I really do. Nick Collins, it goes without saying. If you traded him, arguably one of your best players in the secondary, you could make a better case for them trading someone in 2010 because they had a stouter secondary than what you're seeing here this year. That's just the way I see it. So,
and what kind of league do we have today, Clayton? A passing league. You know what I'm saying? We're not shoving the ball down the field on run plays all the time. They're getting chunk plays. They're creating, opportunities down the field. And why not have someone that you can count on? If everyone wanted man, let's put, even if Rasul is his own guy, we want man. Let's get an experienced corner out there in his pocket. And like you said with Woodson, man, he became that multi-tool like Winfield is for the Bucs. Woodson was doing everything when he was getting, near the end of his career there when we won that Super Bowl. He was all over the place. Put him at safety, put him at corner, put him at slot. And I mean, we probably could have done that with Rasul, but are we asking those kind of things from our players? How much are we trying to, have them be an athlete?
Yeah, definitely. Jeff in the chat said, you said it, Clayton, it destroys your culture and your evaluators have no clue what they have in their existing players. That was the frustrating part too, Jeff, early in the year was like, are we going to get a true evaluation of Jordan Love with having this young core of weapons around him? Like, That's why I was a little more lenient. Like, hey, let's at least see the whole year. Like, I mean, he's playing with arguably the most inexperienced wide receiver room in the entire league. Mm-hmm. That's why it's like, yeah, he's got way less to work with right now. And that's not a knock on those players. Those are young, unproven players, although Tay Wicks looking like a stud now.
Mm-hmm. Jaden
Reed showing all the things you want. Christian Watson, when he's healthy, looks like a stud, in my opinion. I know some people would disagree. Romeo Doubs, one of the best 50-50 balls guys in the game right now. You get inside the five and you want to take a shot. Heck, look at what Malik Heath did there against the Giants. Right? So I'm not trying to dog on him. I'm simply saying if you had to pick between these receiving cores and you said, all right, you can either pick between the 2006 receiving core of Donald Driver, Jordy Nelson, James Jones, and Greg Jennings, Brett Favre's receiving core that included Sterling Sharp, who some would say would be a Hall of Famer, or this group right here. I'm pretty sure this year would be the last one picked in that draft. If you drafted between those three receiving cores. So, it's fun to kind of compare. I know some people, the gatekeepers, don't like it when you compare eras to eras and players to players, but we do things different on this show. And I'm sure they don't even know we exist, so that's okay.
Yeah, right.
Donald in the chat says, I think we do see Ja this week. I really do. I hope you're right, Donald. And I hope he comes out and puts all the rumors to bed and just plays with his hair on fire. Mm-hmm. And he's that swagalicious Jair Alexander that we loved back when he had his best couple of years. let's get that guy back in the lineup, because if you plug him in over Ballantyne, whole different dynamic with this defense.
Right.
If you're getting peak Jair Alexander.
Right.
Don't want to have that setback either.
Right. Even if we're in cover 3 drop, and we have Ja in there, he can still run with Evans. We could still basically have man up the sideline if we're in cover 3 drop and Ja's out there. We can feel more comfortable letting him stay in his hip pocket and maybe draw the safety back towards center field. So it's not like, those options are gone of him staying in someone's pocket and just, grinding out man on him. But the problem is when we're trying to force it down, it's like you said, we can't just drop Ja over here in single coverage and have him rabbit him and just stay on him the entire time while we got the other 10 running, a cover 2 without, another guy or something like that. So it's not like we can just track them all over the field.
Yeah. CL in the chat says, big fan of Sewell, but unlike 2010, no way Green Bay was winning the Super Bowl this year. Love is no Rodgers. I've got to respectfully disagree, CL. I'm not saying I'm guaranteeing Love is as good as Rodgers. That would be just absolute insanity. But what are you basing your comment off of? That's what I'm respectfully asking. I'm not trying to dog on your pile on. I'm asking respectfully. Because when you look at the statistics from 2006, Aaron's first year starting, Jordan, some would argue, is better. He's performed better. I think we would all agree, maybe you respectfully disagree, and that's totally cool. I haven't found one single person that says this receiving core is better than the receiving core that Aaron Rodgers had. Also, Aaron Rodgers gracefully endorsed Jordan Love on the way out. Like, Jordan Love is the guy. Brett Favre burned the building to the ground and said, I want to play for the Vikings. He put all that extra pressure on Aaron as well, right? So what are you basing that off of? Yes, we know Aaron Rodgers is arguably the best thrower of the football. If you said accuracy, I've got to concede. Yeah. Aaron Rodgers is way more accurate than Jordan Love, absolutely. But look at the win total. We've got 4 games left, and he's already matched Aaron Rodgers' win total the first year he took over starting. Like, I have not been one to try to draw this comparison between Love and Rodgers, because I do think it's a little bit unfair to try to put that much pressure on someone, as if Jordan even knows I'm speaking right now. He doesn't. But, like, when you look at it, though, you go, okay, win total, he's got it with a worse receiving core. And then you go, well, he got a better team. Do we? Okay, so now all of a sudden the defense is good? Right. Everybody's been telling me that Joe Barry's horrible and this defense sucks. Like, you can't, not that you are, CO, I'm just kind of speaking out loud. Like, you can't have it both ways.
Keep moving those goalposts, man.
Yeah. Offensive line. Look at the offensive line that Aaron Rodgers had coming in and all the veteran presence. I know Chad Clifton, if I remember correctly, went down that year. I believe he was still on the roster. But look at the guys that were in place then. Mark Tauscher at right tackle. I'm trying to remember when Bulaga was drafted, but I think that might have been around the same time. I could be wrong. But when you look at our left tackle position right now, box out, you got a 7th round pick playing left tackle, right? You've got, one of the most controversial Packers in Josh Myers, not to his fault, but just when you look at Josh Myers, some people think he's an absolute stud. Others think, what are we doing here playing him at center?
Right.
Look at the way Runyon's played at right guard, right? Like, when you compare it across the board, I don't think it's just a slam dunk that, oh, no, we expected 2010 to win a Super Bowl. Guys, I was a fan. I remember the injuries and going, oh, God. And it was that Philly game where I went, hold up. And then Atlanta, it was like, what? Here we go.
Well, that's it.
That momentum. People forget, Emilio, they were road warriors.
Right. Right. And right now we're not road warriors. That's something that this specific team needs to work on. But in 2010, how many people were calling for us to win the Super Bowl? That didn't come until Super Bowl weekend. By the time we actually got in there, everyone was holding us out until then. So, anything can happen. You can always go on a run any given Sunday, all of that. But the team this year is completely different. I mean, they're different people, different times, different eras. It's like apples to oranges sort of thing. It's still football, but it's still a fruit, but the way that each team plays differently is, it's specific to them directly.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's go to the chat here. And again, CL, thank you for the comment, man. That's a fascinating conversation. It really is. Like I said, I respectfully disagree with you, but I think I'm in the minority with that comment. I could be, right? That's just kind of how I see it, though, man. And I appreciate you commenting, buddy. Doug in the chat says, young wide receiver room with your most talented being Watson on the sideline for half the year. Love has done nicely. He has, man. You got to give him credit. You guys heard me. I've been if I see something negative, I'm going to say it. Believe me. Go to Twitter and look how I'm getting roasted over Joe Barry. Like I'm just simply pointing out, here's why the defense is failing, and it's shut up. You're gonna mess up and put a voice out there, and they're gonna keep Barry. This is gonna be your fault. I'm just going, look, I wouldn't mind to have a new DC either, but to throw him completely under the bus saying this scheme sucks, that ain't the case, man.
Slow down, back up a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's rewatch the game. The problem is everyone's shooting from the hip right after the game, during the game. You know, and they watch the one TV copy and they never look at it again. So it's like, and then they come out, oh, dude, don't talk to me about stats, dude. Don't talk to me about this, about that. And it's like, man,
don't talk to me about anything other than what I want to talk about to prove my point.
Yeah. And honestly, like the way it's going, we said it a little while ago. I think I said it. We got, you know, Aaron Rodgers had Mike McCarthy. You know, Brett Favre had Holmgren. Jordan Love's got Matt LaFleur. I was watching that documentary on Bart Starr last night. I only caught like half of it, but they were talking about how Starr was literally like a second Lombardi, a Lombardi on the field. You know, he knows it in and out. He is in his hip pocket. Guys would come talk to Starr if they were frustrated with Lombardi, and Starr kind of worked him through it. Hey, man, you know, the way they process the game exactly the same. So if you got a coach on the field, and I think that's what Jordan Love's, you know, starting to become. If he's able to rally all these young guys around him, coach them up on the field, get them in the right spots, know what the play's happening, know the offense. That is, you know, enormous for this team. You know, we're already past those hard parts. We're getting to the part, you know, you don't see Jordan Love sitting there flipping up his QB thing. Oh man, what number are we running? 16. All right, that's a Z drag. Like, no, man, he's not about that. We are way past that point. So the fact that, you know, we're trying to, you know, look back on it like that. Imagine if we were just, you know, trying to tread water. Hey, you know, we're calling the play from the wrist guard, that sort of stuff. We're lucky, man. We got to keep on it, and they are progressing.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. The valleys to me, like, I know people don't want to hear it. We lost the game by whatever it was, 2 points, whatever it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was the final score? Was it? Yeah, it was a 2-point difference, right?
Right. Yep. How many one scores have we lost, Clayton? How many one scores this
people go, all right,
year?
does it matter? It does matter. It shows you how close you are as the youngest team in the league. You're right there. You're right there. And if we can keep our emotions in check and not try to fire the DC, not try to, you know, say that Love is or isn't the next coming of Aaron Rodgers and all these things, right? If you can keep your emotions in check for literally, like Emilio said, just one game. Don't, you know, what do I always tell you guys? I tell Tim this all the time. Like when we do the post-game show after a loss, guys, listen, it's tough. It's tough. As Love and the Packers, the last thing you want to do is go live immediately and talk about a loss. Right. It is I don't want to say it's the worst feeling in the world, but it's up there, man. It sucks. It's like pulling teeth. I always text the guys and go, hey, 15 minutes, cool off. Because when we get in here, this is not going to be the show where we come in here half drunk and we're, fire him. He's playing soft. He's an idiot. Like, not going to happen on this show. Ain't going to happen. I love Daddy Sodas watching football.
Oh, yeah.
But I have drank less Daddy Sodas since doing this show because I don't want to be that guy acting like an idiot. Like, I don't. And do what you want to do. However you want to fan, it's cool. But you're not going to get that on here. You're not going to get emotional overreactions on this show. It ain't going to happen. If that's boring, I completely understand. Because listen, guys, when I get done with the post-game show, I go tune into some of those just to get a feel. And it's like, man, it is comedic relief. It is good entertainment, but it's not what we're going to do here. Fern, thank you, buddy. I don't know if it's a man or a woman, but Clayton always speaks facts. I try to. I can be a moron at times, but I'm going to try to do everything that I say. I'm going to try to back it up with, okay, here's what the analytics show. Here's what the tape shows. Here's what the stats show. Doug says it was pretty clear Rodgers lived rent-free in Favre's head. Favre knew he was competition. I think Rodgers seen a little bit of that with Love too. I think he looked back like, hey, this kid can play. I've seen a little bit of that. And I love that Rodgers was just like, you guys seen the video. You can go dig it up. If you just type in thank you, Aaron Rodgers on and search @Packers_access, you'll see a video. It's got a ton of views now. Holy cow. Yeah. But it's just basically a thank you to Aaron Rodgers. And it starts off with how he was treated stepping into Green Bay and Favre's shadow. and then how he made sure Jordan Love didn't get treated that way. That's why I was not accepting the slander on Aaron last year. Ever since he got the vaccine, that's when it started. I don't care what anybody says. And they go, oh no, it had nothing to do with it. Go search people's timeline. They'll start deleting the tweets now. You watch, but if you go to their timeline and you search Aaron Rodgers, that's all you got to search, and it'll show you the date that they tweeted. Positive. October of 2021, I think it was.
Yeah. I'm immunized.
Negative. Ever since then, it's this guy's a selfish prick.
Yep.
How about we let people make their own life decisions?
Right. That's it. Why you like you always say, Clayton, why are you going to walk down the street, knock on someone's door and say, what are you talking about in there? Dude, let them be, man. Let them live their life, dude. You got your own 24 hours in a day to worry about. Why don't you worry about that? Yeah. Let it chill out for a second. It seems like everybody's, everyone that's drawn on that, like Doug said, man, all that stuff is living rent free in their head. Joe Barry's living rent free in everybody's head that doesn't, that thinks that this defense is nothing. Everyone that thinks Jordan Love can't do it, living rent free in their head. Why do we got to put them down, man? Let them just play ball. We've got 18 games to watch, so let's or 16, or 17. Geez, let's get it done.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and people were hearing that and they're going, Clayton is anti-vaxxer. Clayton's vaccinated, just so you know. Now,
Clayton is immunized, folks.
Yes, great. No. I'm actually vaccinated, but do you want to know if I regret it? Probably don't want to have that conversation. That's a story for another day. And people are going, oh, key up the conspiracy music. I can only speak from my personal experience, and I'm telling you, I regret it. Mm-hmm. You want to call that fake news or whatever, you do what you want with it. I don't care. But that's everybody has their experience and their opinion on it. Doug in the chat says, people criticize the footwork and off-balance throws. Favre did it to avoid injury from getting rolled up on while having his planted feet. It's inherited. I completely agree with that because what Favre did so well was recoil. He'd throw and recoil. You've seen Aaron Rodgers do it, that fadeaway throw. If you got the arm strength, great, but you're recoiling. It's very rare that you've seen Favre in the latter years, really halfway through his career to the end. And Aaron Rodgers, it's very rare that you just see them get blown up because they know how to torque, how to recoil. You see a little bit of that with Jordan Love for sure. I think that stuff's important. Mike in the chat says, I still say we were 1 to 2 years away from being a serious contender. I think that's probably the most accurate prediction, Mike. If I had to put money on it, hey, when do you think the window is the best chance? It would be that. I'm simply saying, not that you're disagreeing, but I'm simply saying for people to pretend like 2010 was just a slam dunk, we're going to the Super Bowl. That is not the case. It was not the case at all. Jeff said it wasn't until we boat raced the Falcons before I believed in them. I think I would agree with that too. It was that game that I went, hold up a minute. We might be able to win this whole damn thing. That's when it hit me. I remember sitting here on the couch. Everybody else was hooting and hollering, watching the game. And they're like, why are you so calm? I'm just like, I can't believe this is happening. This team, the way it just turned around. And that's the difference between having a franchise quarterback and not, man. It really is. All right, last comment here comes from Derek K. He keeps it real simple. He just said, guys, let's get to the important stuff.
65%.
65%. That's what we There you go. Emilio, parting thoughts, buddy. Anything?
Hey, man, we got football today. Couple of division games. Let's see how they turn out. We got a big game there with Cincy and Minnie and Denver and Detroit. Detroit's been on an absolute burner since they smacked us. So I'm excited to see that game. And honestly, we got a monster game coming up against Tampa Bay. We have to win this game. They have to show up. I don't think that Matt's going to let them go, back-to-back losses. We've already been down that path this year, and everyone was saying put Clifford in. So if we lose another back-to-back, I think they're going to try to pull out the big red dog again. And I'm really just not even ready for that. I'm not, why are we putting Jordan Love in a box and tying both hands behind his back and say, all right, you're not showing up. All right, you got to go, man. Like, dude, just chill out for 5 seconds. Let him throw the ball. Let him evolve. Matt LaFleur and him are starting to think on the same wavelength. Let's get it done, man. If we can get a little bit of run game going, get Love to be able to sell that play action. He picked it up from Rodgers, who probably picked it up from Favre. Sell the entire body, crunch down, show the ball, peel it back, turn your head quick, get the ball out. Yeah. His technique is there, his throwing motion's there. Tom Clements is Like Roger said,
What a dog, dude.
right. He could have a perfect passing rating, and Tom Clements come out and, dude, you had like a C plus. You had like literally a C plus today. Like, you think you're an all-star? I'm just gonna humble you real quick. And that's what, everyone's putting the team down. How about we just humble them? How about we help them? It's not about trying to tear them down to nothing. How about we cut them where they made a mistake, and then we can build on top of that.
Yes.
You missed a cut. All right, let's take that 2x4 out. Let's recut it so it actually sits in there right.
Yeah, that starts on social media, guys. Fans think that you don't matter. You don't think they read Twitter? I mean, how many times have we seen players respond, whether it was positive or negative? Dre Campbell has responded at negative comments. Keyshawn Nixon's responded at negative comments. They're watching. As a fan base, why don't we build them up? They're on the roster. They're on your favorite team.
Right.
Why don't we? It's okay to point out like we do. We try to do it respectfully. If you see it, you got to say it. If there's something negative, we're going to say it, right? We're going to show it on tape. But we're not going to go, hey, need to get rid of that guy. He's garbage. Like, what good does that do? They're not going to get rid of him because you said so.
Right.
Why not? Let's try to be a little more respectful on social media, not just to the players, but to each other too. I don't know. It couldn't hurt. What we're talking about with the games today, though, real quick, like he said, Minnesota and Cincinnati, that kicks off at 1:00. We're Bengals fans today. And then, of course, the 8:15 game is going to be Denver at Detroit. I'm rooting for Denver there as well. Now, listen, the games I got circled, we won't go fully through the slate. When I posted it on Twitter, the goal is to get everybody else's opinion. It's not to say, here's who you need to root for.
Right.
So these are my personal interests. Like someone pointed out, why do you want Buffalo to beat Dallas? Don't we want Dallas to have a higher seed? I'm kind of a closet Bills fan, okay? I've got a lot of Buffalo Bills friends. These are the games I'm rooting for, right? So that's just kind of how I see it. If you disagree, it's totally cool. But again, 3 games today. Pittsburgh at Indy might be a good one too. Both of those teams are kind of hit or miss from week to week. But as far as the Minnesota-Cincy game, Cincy are 3-point favorites. We'd love for that to hold true. And then Detroit are 4.5-point favorites. We're looking for an upset there as Denver goes on the road to Detroit. So going to be fun to see that unfold tonight. We're way over, and that's totally cool. You get to having good conversations, having a good time, man, and that stuff's going to happen. But Chris in the chat said, Emilio on fire today. Completely agree. Emilio, I know you said you're not a morning person, dude, but you absolutely rocked it, dude. I appreciate you jumping on.
I can be a morning person. Most of the time it's just for work. So every time I feel bad every time I'm not on here tearing it up. But
no, you're good, man. You're good.
Derek K said I woke up with fire today, so it must be the diesel in the cup.
No, surely it ain't that. There you go. Doug in the chat says, guys, 75 minutes. Wow. I hope that's a good thing, Doug.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Going, wow.
Off, man. Why are you guys still on?
A long garbage show there. All right, guys, we're out of here. Appreciate y'all hanging out with us. There's a chance we go live later this afternoon. I got plans late this evening, but you may see something pop up 5 or 6. I don't want to schedule it and then let you guys down. So if you see us go live, hop in here and chat with us. If not, no big deal.
It'll probably be just a quick one, right? Real quick, because you're busy tonight. So
yeah, we're packing, and tomorrow we're going to do instead of Good Morning Lambeau, we're going to do a Packers pregame show, roughly an hour and a half before the game starts. So look for that. We'll do the post-game show, and immediately following the post-game show, upload the pod, jump in the car, run down to the airport. I got equipment I'm taking with me, so hopefully we won't miss a beat while we're in Florida. So the goal is to be live on site in Florida to continue to do live shows for you guys to keep this thing rolling, because we appreciate y'all hanging out with us. But
get that right
said, what's
down there.
Yeah, hit it. And also, just one last plug here. Really appreciate BetUS becoming the official sports book of Packers Total Access. And if you want to support the show in another way, guys, it's free. Just go register. There's a link in the description of this video on YouTube. You can also find it on my Twitter account. I think I posted it like last night or whatever. It's easiest just to go to YouTube, click on the description. You click on that link, that'll attach you directly to us. That supports the show. You can sign up for free, create an account with BetUS, the official sports book of Packers Total Access Live. Again, gamble responsibly, but we appreciate everybody's support with that. With that being said, we're out of here, guys. As always, let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world. Go Pack, go.